Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make a paint stroke. First of all, you can see that I'm angling my brush. So it's at an angle. I'm not going straight down from the top and to the paper. I'm angling it. That'll actually protect your brush in the long run. So here you can see it a little bit more clearly. It's a pretty steep angle, and you can't see my fingertips because they're high up on that handle. They're not near that silver metal ferrule part. They're up on that yellow gold handle, pretty high. So you're kind of like pushing the paint a little bit on the paper, and you can go a multitude of directions. So the direction of the stroke will kind of depend upon what you're painting. If you're working on a sky, you'll tend to want to paint more up and down vertically. If you're painting water, it'll be more of a horizontal stroke. If you are painting a bush, you'll want to go kind of circular with the bush. Think about it as a form. If you're painting a tree, the trunk will be vertical, but the branches or the leaves might not be. They might be more curvy. So one thing you want to avoid is smashing those bristle hairs, especially once you get your own brush. You have to maintain and care for that brush. It is your responsibility. I'm not going to remind you to clean it or to handle it with care. You're going to have to do that on your own. If you smash those bristles, those brush hairs, it'll destroy the brush. So it is with care and kind of gentleness that you're doing your stroke. It's a short stroke. It's about half of an inch. It's not very long. And what you don't want to do is big, huge stripes. You're just doing little short, almost like a dot, but it's a long, kind of a long dot. And like I said, you can go multitude of directions. If you look at the paintings of Van Gogh, he has like swirls in his sky and a lot going on, but they are a lot of tiny, short strokes that are making up those swirls and kind of curvy lines. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're working. So that's a goal. You also want to make sure that you're not dipping the brush too much in the paint. Like the amount of paint that's on this brush is about just right. You don't want to really go up to the silver handle of the brush or the silver part, that ferrule part. You want to leave that clear. So you should just dip a little bit in the brush hairs. You're not trying to oversaturate it. That can damage your brush over time. I also want to tell you that you should be washing your brush in cold water. Your brush will last longer if you do cold water as opposed to warm. Now we're going in and I'm showing you a little demo of a sky. So I'm making some various shades of tints, some violets, and we're working warm. So these are warmer violets, they're not blue violet. And there's a variety of different shades I'm mixing on my palette. You can kind of see my palette off to one side. So there's a tint, there's a little bit darker shade. Just want to point out when you do a sky, it's always going to be, well, not always, but almost always going to be darker on the top and then fade as it goes down to the horizon. So I keep that in mind whenever I do a sky. For a water reflection with sky in it, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be lighter at the top part, and as it goes down towards your foreground, it's going to get darker. So just cool things to keep in mind. Also, there tends to be a little bit of yellow in skies, particularly in California, because that kind of yellowish color is part of our pollution in the atmosphere. It can actually be interesting. Even on a blue sky, you'll see a little bit of yellow mixed in with the blue towards the horizon line, and then it gets progressively darker as you look up. So anyway, I'm not really trying to blend these. I'm just trying to get a similar color, and I'm just dabbing them on. The thing about the application of the paint is you're going to be doing it in multiple passes. This is just pass one. There may be like 30 more passes on this before it's complete. The more passes you do, and a pass is a complete layer of paint that's dried, the more passes you do, the more solid it's going to look. So we're really trying to focus on creating a work of art that looks pretty good. And again, you're building it up. You want to think of it almost like leaves falling in a pond, layering one color on top of another. You can still see glimpses of the leaves underneath, but you have an idea of the value and where you're going, and it creates this complexity that's kind of cool.